off, that's off, that's off, that's on. And the stream appears to be live. I think it's good to go. Alright, then we're gonna get going. Hello! Shadowcat back! Yes, it's Sunday, it's back to the tabletop stream. We're gonna have fun today because we are done with all the humanoid races and everything that needs to have like rules and stuff, and so we're done with that. That means that we get to have fun doing all the stuff with the things that don't have rules, which means it's gonna go a lot slower. However, it's gonna be a lot more interesting, I think, because I get to make creatures and things that are just gonna be like maybe a little overpowered because it's going to be fun. And yeah, and JP says I missed a switch. Pretty sure I didn't. I got that one. I got that one. I got that one. I got that one. No, I got all the switches. You stop that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into this. Before I do that, though, I will say hello to everybody who is currently in the chat. Hello, JP. Stop messing with me first thing in the morning. And hello, Blizz. Good to see you, too. I didn't miss any switches. Okay, so in order to do this, we're going to need, of course, our references. We got to have our browser up because we're going to need that. And we're also going to need a place to put everything. And I suppose real quick, before I do anything, JP says, "Where is the wave?" The wave does not work on this chair that I'm using, and so I can't do that. I can type it in all day, but it doesn't go. And so I don't know why. I gotta find a new chair that like doesn't block the animations and stuff. But I like this chair. It's a very nice chair. It's a very expensive chair too, but that's neither here nor there. I will figure something out when I have time because I missed the wave too. We'll just have to kind of work on that. It's a work in progress. Okay, but we're gonna get back into it. So we'll take a look at what we did last time, and we'll go from there. So we got all of our humanoid races done. And when we say humanoid races, what we're talking about is essentially just all of the normal races that you would think of. Like all of your standard fantasy races. Humans, elves, dwarves, orcs, goblins, etc. Things like that. And Knight of Bawa? I don't know you. You're new. Hello, it's good to see you. Hopefully I get to see a lot more of you. Okay, so yeah, we did these guys, and all of these are going to be following the same rules that every other race in Pathfinder has to follow. That is essentially they get a +2 bonus. Now that +2 bonus can be a simple +1, like we got with the wisdom here, the charisma, primarily the dexterity. A lot of them got just a bonus to dexterity, or it has to be a +2 overall. So like with the hag, +2 dexterity, +2 intelligence, -2 charisma. The -2, the +2 cancel each other out. We still get a +2 overall. And JP says, I went from wandering endlessly around a city to a chair. I wasn't wandering. I certainly wasn't wandering endlessly. Because, like, that gets tiring after a while. Oh, and Knight of Bawa says, this popped up on the YouTube main page for you, and you play Oh my goodness, I made the main page somehow? I think I just got tingles. That is so cool. Okay, so, since you play Magic, I suppose there is a little bit of an explanation to here. So, this is not a Magic the Gathering game. What we are doing here is we are making a Magic the Gathering conversion. Specifically, we are making a conversion to Pathfinder. Now, if you don't know what Pathfinder is, and I don't want to be insulting to anybody, but Pathfinder is tabletop game. Very, very similar to Dungeons & Dragons. As a matter of fact, Pathfinder used Dungeons & Dragons 3.0 as kind of like its foundation. It is a tabletop role-playing game, and it is fantastic. It's amazing. It is my favorite TTRPG of all of the various ones that are out there, and there are a lot of them. However, in my time playing, I have had many groups that have said, I want to play X. Like, for example, the one that really got me started on all of this was I had a gaming group that wanted to play FTL, as in the computer game on Steam, FTL, and they wanted to turn that into a tabletop game, which is how I got started making these conversion modules, because I had to take the computer game, take the elements that made it unique, and translate those into different features for a tabletop setting. That was the first one I did, and it worked out really, really well. And since then, I have been doing more of them. We have done the Wheel of Time, we have done Final Fantasy, we have done Warhammer 40,000. A very, very skimmed down version of it, but still. And now we are doing this. Now, when I say a conversion module, what do I mean by that? Just as a very quick overview, we have turned Planeswalkers into an actual playable class. That class is started here. It's not finished yet, but it is started. We have a role for them, we have alignments, hit dies, everything else that we would need, including ways for them to actually summon spells, to cast spells, including a number of mana that they're allowed to hold, depending on their level, the number of spells per day they're allowed to cast. This is essentially your deck, and the spells that you know, which is also essentially your deck. And the goal here is exactly just that. When this is done, if you are already a Magic the Gathering player, you should be able to take your actual deck and import it directly into a Pathfinder game. And you will be able to be the Planeswalker that you already are in an actual persistent world setting where the game does not end after the cards are done being dealt. That's the goal, at least. To that end, we have created an entire environment system where we can generate maps with mana values. We have spell systems that are already done. We've already gone through and converted every single one of the ability the ability things into Pathfinder rules, as well as how we're going to cast a lot of these spells. I haven't gone through things like enchantments and such yet. However, those should honestly be pretty easy. Just do what the card says. I've got rules up here for damaging spells. And currently we are working on creatures. Now the creatures, we've already established that the creatures are going to be their own type. So just like when you go into to Pathfinder, you have different kinds of creature types. Let me pull up the bestiary here. Sorted by types. Up here we've got aberrations, animals, constructs, dragons, fae, humanoids, magical beasts, all the things like that. All of our creatures are going to be their own specific creature type. They are called echoes, because that's what they are inside the lore. They are simply the manifestation of anything that Planeswalker has seen, which is represented, of course, by your deck. So they have all those statistics here. They're fantastic. We have a size chart so we can judge how big they are. We have maneuverabilities for them. Speed is generally 30. It's going to be fine. And so now we're going through and trying to make or determine what the abilities of them are going to be. When we're making our creatures, because you're going to have a mini sheet for every single one of your creatures, and that's what we've got here, we need to have all of their different statistics. And I've made a couple of examples. I've got an Aven Fateshaper, I've got Emrakul, who is an Eldrazi, and I've got a Goliath Spider because I wanted something with reach. The important thing that we're doing right now is the ability scores, which is these right here. So strength and constitution are going to be determined by whatever card you're playing. The strength and constitution of your creature is essentially the power and toughness of the card plus 10. It's very simple. So, I actually got to fix this one because the Aven Fate Shaper is technically a 4-5. I had tried giving it equipment. It's fine. I can fix it. So, technically the Aven Fate Shaper would be a 14-15. Then, because it is a bird, it gets a bonus to certain things. Because it is a wizard, it gets bonuses to certain things. And that's going to give us a full panel of ability scores that we can use, so it is a fully fledged creature. The rest of it just kind of fills in itself. But before we can do that, we actually have to have the numbers to fill them in, which is what we're doing today. We've already gone through and filled in a whole bunch of these. These humanoid races, like I said before, these are your typical races. All of them are going to get a +2 bonus. We already did the animals. To scale them in line with all normal animals in the game, we are setting their intelligence to 2. We're giving them bonuses to their dexterity and their wisdom. Because animals survive by being the toughest, the fittest, and on their instincts. So we gave them good instincts. Now, we're going to get down here. The other humanoid races that don't have a subtype, things like the Avens, we're giving them a +6 just right across the board. So, as a bird, its intelligence score is getting set to 2. However, the Aven are uplifted. And so they're getting a +6 to their intelligence, and that's going to bring them up to a nice 8. It's still a little bit low. However, for example, the Aven Fate Shaper, once we give it the wizard, it's going to give it more intelligence. It'll bring it up to a 10. It will be human intelligence. It's all going to work out beautifully. So we did that last time, and now we're working on this list. The humanoid races in appearances only. In other words, they might look human, but they are not human. Which means that they're not bound by the rules. So we did the Aetherborn. These are people that are just literally born from energy. They're not going to get any kind of bonus to their dexterity, but they're getting a bonus to all 3 of their soft stats because it's great. Angels, Archons, Angels and Archons, and the Demigods and Dijin. Oh, and the Ifrits. All got the same stuff. So they're just getting a +2 to everything. So dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, because they are just kind of better. They're just better than you. I mean, it's an angel. It's supposed to be. For gods, it seemed best to just give them great stats all the way around, and so whichever one of the stats on the card is higher, that's going to be what sets everything. So if it's an 8/8 god card, then it's going to set its dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma to 8s as well. And that seems like it'll be pretty godlike. There is a little bit of a nuance here. Is it a little bit low for a god to have just like an 18 in strength? Absolutely. It's a god. It should have much, much higher strength than that. But we also have to keep in mind these are just echoes. It's not the actual god. Whatever you summon is not going to be omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. It's not going to be any of that. It's going to be your interpretation of what the thing is. And, I mean, let's be honest. An 18 in strength. Just a little bit of a side tangent. I was playing around with these models between this week and last week. And I was looking at anime. And I wanted to look at Dragon Ball Z and figure out exactly what would the ability scores for like the Dragon Ball characters be, because when you think of somebody like Goku, Goku's number is basically just going to be the infinity symbol, right? As it turns out, that's not actually that far off, because Goku's strength score, if I remember my notes right, and I'm not pulling them up right now, Goku's strength score was 429 in base form. Judging or basing this on how much he's able to lift. And that was how much he was able to lift in the Buu Saga. Where he's gone from there, I have honestly no idea. However, that's not important. The important part is that Goku is the ceiling. I needed to find a floor, and so who's the floor in the Dragon Ball universe? It's not the normal humans, but it is going to be one of the Z fighters. And so there were a few options, but the best one seemed to be Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi is absolutely superhuman. She is one of the strongest people on the planet. Now, is she on par with the rest of the Z fighters? Absolutely not. But if you put her in a ring with pretty much every single other human on the planet, she's going to wreck them. And I looked up, as best I could, how much strength she could, how much she could lift. As it turns out, once you get done with all the research and conversions, Chi-Chi's strength score is about 20. Okay? Chi-Chi's strength is about 20. Which makes her, again, one of the strongest beings on the planet. But it's actually really, really reasonable. And so when we look at things like these god characters, giving a god character an 18 or a 20 in strength is low for a god. And no, JP, I did not just rabbit hole myself. There's a point to this. Giving a god an 18 or a 20 score is low for a god, but it is high for literally everybody else around them. And so it works. Or at least it works well enough for me. And let's see. Knight says, it also depends on the plane the gods come from Magic 2. The Theros gods exist in much the same way some do in Discworld. The number of follows equals more powerful. I've never read Discworld, okay? Just full disclosure. So I don't understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I do. I mean, just the fact that you said the number of followers equals more powerful, I understand that. Discworld isn't the only one to have done that one, so I've seen that before in other places. I've heard good things about it too. I heard Discworld was really good. So yeah, that's where we're going to go with the gods. And that's going to make them really easy to create because I do not want these things to take as long as it takes to make a fully fledged character. It should be like a whole 5 minutes. You find the card that you want to add to your spell book, and we can write up a sheet for it in like 5 minutes or less. That's the goal. So gods should be really easy. So, with that being said, let's start moving on. An Inkling. Where was this? Here we go. Inkling, Inkling, Inkling. Here it is. What is an Inkling? Go away. Okay, an Inkling. It's ink. I don't know what I was expecting. It's a creature subtype which so far only appears on tokens. If it only appears on tokens, do I need it? Actually, I do kind of need it. Because if whatever creature summons the tokens is in your collection, then we'll need to have stats for it because you'll need to have a mini sheet for your token creatures too. Oh, that could get bad. Okay, anyway. They're small, black, vaguely humanoid creatures made out of ink magic. They're created by mascots of the Silver Quill College students of the Strixhaven University on the plane of Arcavios. This is not an unhinged thing, is it? Let's see. Living inky voids often serve as helpers and pets. Their physical attacks can also be devastating, tearing an opponent's life force. Their fluid, changeable forms alter to reflect their creator's thoughts and intentions. Cool. Oh, here we go. Printings. What are these? Strixhaven. Let's see. Battle for Baldur's Gate. Well, we're not using that. However, Brothers War Commander. Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and Duskworn. Yeah, these things are completely legitimate. So we'll need something for this. Here's a thing. They're, I have a hard time treating them as if they were a smart creature. These things are literally, it says they're devastating. They can serve as helpers and pets. But that word right there is serve. That's the important one. These things are only really going to do what they're told. It's kind of like summoning a minion. So I'm not going to give them anything for their intelligence. Charisma, also none. They're not going to get anything for that. Because they are made of ink and because they are shapeshifters, I am going to go ahead and give them a bonus to their dexterity. And honestly, I think that's about it. There's just not much to them. So I think that's all it's going to be. It's not the only time we've done that. We only gave the skeletons a dexterity bonus as well, so that'll be fine. Knight says they originated in the Strixhaven set, and then certain cards got reprinted in the Commander's products. Okay, fair enough. Either way, though, they're legitimate. Right. Again, have to remember, you're new here. I am going to do my best to include all magic cards. I want you to be able to come to something like here. I want you to be able to come here to this this Magic the Gathering search page thing and look up any card you want and put it in here, with a few exceptions. Number 1, no uncards. Anything from one of the unsets, unglued, unraveled, unhinged, all of those, they're out. And I don't care if it's tournament legal or not, it's out. The reason being, number 1, most of them are too silly to have any real play inside of a Pathfinder module. And number 2, a lot of them just wouldn't work. They would be unbalanced, they would... It wouldn't work. The other exception is going to be any of the franchise sets. I forget the word they use for them, but things like the Warhammer 40k deck, the Doctor Who deck, the Walking Dead deck, all of those things are also out. So, yeah. That's why I have to be a little bit careful when I look at these, because when I see something that looks a little bit weird, I gotta question it, because those cannot be allowed in. And the reason being is, right, Knight says Universes Beyond, that's it. The reason is not because I want to be a dick, okay? Not to say that I'm not. I am. But it's for balance purposes. If I was to, say, allow things like the Warhammer 40k stuff in, it would get bad really fast, because we can have fighters and wizards and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden you introduce Space Marines. Yeah, it's not going to go well for anybody. Now, Space Marines are going to fall into the same categories like gods, where it doesn't have to match exactly what a Space Marine would be. But even if we came in and just said, hey, here's a Space Marine, it has a bolter, that's already going to be bad for pretty much everything in terms of balance. So we're not doing that. That's why all the Universes Beyond stuff is out as well. And don't even get me started on the Doctor. That's just not even going there. Okay, so oh yes, and like JP said, I do not push this enough. I have a Discord. If you want to play with us, because I have multiple of these modules that are pretty much ready to go, or at least ready to be play tested. If you want to play with us, all you have to do is go into the description below and join the Discord. When you get there, it's okay, don't get lost, but when you get there, go to the Behind the Screen channel, and you can let me know what your availability is and what modules you're interested in playing. Once I have enough people for one module, then we can start setting something up. So if you're interested in playing with us, that's how you do. And believe me, I'm all for it. If I could make this like my entire life, I would. Like, if I had to cut other videos out of my weekly schedule to make room for more tabletop games, that's a thing that could happen. So, we'll do it. PC Unicorn is in the chat as well. Hello, PC. Good to see you. And with that, we're going to get back to this. So, with them done, we're going to get back into Lamias. And I know what a Lamia is. They're snake people. Personally, I'm not exactly a fan of them. Or at least they're snake people in everything else that I've known them. It's not to say that they're not. They're still snake people here. Sometimes things change. Okay. Introduced into Journey into Nyx. Let's see. Lamias are female monsters created when powerful emotions caused by the god's actions consume a mortal's mind. Nyx-born creatures. Lamias will themselves into being with wildly varied physical forms reflecting the creature's twisted imagination. Lamias appear to have scaly, bestial bodies and humanoid faces. Others feature serpentine appearances vaguely resembling the Naga. Okay, yeah, some of them actually do resemble snakes. So I was partially right at least. Oh boy, that's a hard one. So, since they have varied physical forms, I cannot give them a bonus to dexterity because this is going to be a blanket bonus. Some of them are going to be really, really dexterous. Some of them are going to be really, really not dexterous, and so that's going to cancel out and say no dexterity. So, what about the others? We've got our soft stats, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. I'm going to go ahead and just assume that these things do not get a charisma bonus for obvious reasons. And so, what else do we have? Well, it says the creative and powerful emotions are caused by the god's actions and consume a mortal's mind. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Okay, so first off, we're talking about emotions. Well, when you talk about emotions, intelligence usually goes out the window. Usually. So, I can't really do that. And so that would normally leave will, or not will, but wisdom, being their best stat. Except here's the thing. It says that they're brought in when the god's actions consume a mortal's mind. That sounds a lot like insanity. Which would normally be a penalty to wisdom. I have no idea what I'm supposed to give these things. It almost seems like they don't really get a bonus. Or they get a bonus to everything. For the time being, I'm not going to give them a bonus just because I don't feel like they deserve one. They just don't. There's too many contradictions in them. Which is maybe fitting for something like this. So, I don't think I'm going to do it. I think we're going to just skip this one and just leave it as is. Now, does that mean that Lamia cards are going to be worse? No. Or at least I can't necessarily say that they're going to be worse. There's only 2 cards that are Lamia according to this. If they have abilities that are still useful to you, then, you know, you might still have a reason to take them. But now you're picking it literally for the abilities, not for what it is. Okay, so next up is going to be a nymph. Now, what do they call a nymph here? Nymph is a creature type on cards used to depict divine spirits who animate nature in the form of beautiful, young, nubile maidens, though some Theros nymphs are male, who love to dance and sing. Okay, I like it. I like it already. They sound like nymphs. That's helpful. In Greek mythology, a nymph is a minor female nature deity typically associated with a particular location and land form. Different from goddesses, they're believed to dwell in mountains and groves by springs and rivers, and also in trees and valleys and cool grottos. Yeah, it's a nymph. I mean, we know what nymphs are. So knowing what nymphs are, I think this one should actually be pretty easy. Nymphs are, by reputation, they're elusive. Given that they are elusive, they're hard to catch. That's going to be a +2 dexterity. Now, what else do they have going for them? Are nymphs particularly smart? No. They are not generally considered to be smart, as in they're not educated. Are they smart? Yes. Do they know things? Yes, they do. But they are not educated. Most of what they do, given that they are creatures of the wild, is based on instinct, and they have really, really good instincts. But instinct and intelligence are not the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to give them a +2 to wisdom. And, as it says, they are beautiful young nubile maidens, although some of them are male, who love to dance and sing. That is an automatic charisma bonus right there. They're attractive. So it's going to be a +2 charisma. And that's real simple. So no penalties for them. You'll get whatever strength and constitution's on the card. The only thing you're lacking is in some kind of intelligence. And JP says it's easy to catch them in tree form because they're rooted. Okay, well, can't argue with that. Probably bad to catch them, though. I think it's bad luck if you actually do catch one. Okay, so that'll take care of nymphs. Next is going to be reflection. That ought to be interesting. Reflection is a creature type used for cards and tokens that depict any creature that is an image of another creature seen in a mirror, on a shiny surface, or in the air. The reflection may be a specular or diffuse according to the nature of the contact surface. The first card to bear this was the Aurora of Emrakul. There's the Eldrazi again. The Aurora of Emrakul in the Eldritch Moon, but the subtype was used much earlier for tokens in the Tempest and Invasion. It returned in Theros Beyond Death for Illyrios, the Enraptured, and again in Duskmourn House of Horror for the Mirror Room. So I guess this just makes tokens, given that's what they're showing here. What am I going to do with this? I think I need to see one of them. Let me go ahead and look up this Mirror Room. Oh, it's one of these kind of cards. Yeah, these are also not allowed. However, this will help me. Anyway, let's see. Mirror Room. When you unlock this door, create a token that's a copy of the target creature you control, except that it's a reflection in addition to its other creature types. Since it isn't a reflection, it says it's a reflection in addition to its other creature types. That means that it's already done for us. It's literally already done. We're only adding reflection onto this thing and creating another one. So there's nothing we have to do for reflection. This is super simple. We can just skip it. So this is going to be no bonuses. Okay, so now that that's done, let's move on to the next. Shades. Alright, shades are mainly black creatures Used to depict powerful spirits, beings of darkness, typically employed by evil wizards who wield large amounts of black mana. I mean, that seems a little unfair. Not everyone who uses black mana has to be evil. You can be good and you still use black mana. Let's see. Shades are the shadowy ghosts of dead people which linger on the earth. The cards usually have a pump effect. The first card to bear this was the Frozen Shade in Alpha. Okay, so that's it. It's just a shade. It's not as if it's a complicated idea. It's just I'm not sure how we're going to do it. Are shades particularly dexterous? Well, no, not generally. I mean, I guess they could be. But the biggest thing about fighting a shade is that they're usually incorporeal in some way. I mean, you can attack them, but whether you even harm them is completely up to chance, because it's ethereal. Are they particularly smart? No, not really, they're dead. Are they particularly wise? Again, no, not really, they're dead. Are they charismatic? See the previous before. So, what are we going to give them? I could give them incorporeal effects. However, I also have to recall that... I also have to keep in mind these are echoes. They are not exactly the same creatures. A ghost is absolutely ethereal and can only be harmed with a magic weapon. However, if you summon a ghost, it is still formed out of the same ley line energy that every single other goblin or orc or elf or everything else is made out of. It should be every bit as tangible as those as well. And so for a shade, I feel like it's in the same category as a Lamia. I just cannot think of a bonus to give it. It just doesn't really deserve one. And JP says, Harry Potter Death Eaters or the D&D classic type? I don't think the Death Eaters are technically classified as shades. Like, if you want to talk about shades in Harry Potter, it would be the, what's the name? The Dementors. Yes. Those would be your more typical shades or like a wraith. Actually, I guess Dementors would be more like a wraith, because they literally suck the life out of things. But still, basic concepts. Yeah, shades... I can give it a dexterity bonus. That's about the best I can do. Here, have a dexterity bonus. It'll make it last a little bit longer, because it's not getting anything else. Okay, next then, shapeshifters. Shapeshifters, a creature type based loosely on a loosely defined group of beings capable of assuming other shapes and forms, often imitating other beings. They can be found in all colors of mana, but are predominant in blue. And, JP says incorporeal equals no hit by physical attack. More or less. So, in Pathfinder, and in Dungeons & Dragons as well for that matter, if you have a creature that is incorporeal, let's go ahead and say it right. It's not incorporeal, it's incorporeal. I know, I'm bad about that one too. We can actually look at it right here because I already had the Wraith pulled up. Types and subtypes. Aberrations, where is it? Incorporeal. Here we go, the incorporeal subtype. An incorporeal creature has no physical body. It is immune to critical hits and any precision-based damage, such as sneak attacks, unless the attacks are made using a weapon with ghost touch. In addition, creatures with the incorporeal subtype also gain the incorporeal special quality. So, yeah, like, I guess I was wrong. Not even a magic weapon can hit this unless it has ghost touch. I thought that they were at least still vulnerable to magic weapons. I guess not. So, yeah. Honestly, probably best not to give these shades incorporeal anyway, because if you could summon a bunch of these, it would be a bad day for everybody. And you gotta remember that you might be sitting there thinking, hey, this is awesome. I want an army of creatures that can't be hurt. This is great. Yeah, keep in mind that your enemies can do that too. You could be a badass with a whole bunch of ghosts, so could they. And if they summon a whole bunch of ghosts, what are you gonna do about it? So yeah, we're not giving incorporeal. That'd be a bad day. Anyway, back to the shapeshifter. They're primarily blue. The first one to bear this type was the unstable shapeshifter in Tempest. However, I've seen shapeshifters before. The thing about shapeshifters is that they literally become a separate card. My immediate thought is things like the werewolves, the lycanthropes. They are literally two cards in one. It's a double-sided card. So you play your normal creature, and then when the moon turns, you play, or flip it over, and you've got your werewolf. There is no stat bonus for that, though. That is literally just two creatures that you get to switch between. And so I feel like there's nothing here that I really need to do. Let's see. PC of course says 1-800-GHOSTBUSTERS. Yes. And JP says gotta run. Oh, that's a shame. But thank you for coming in. It was good to see you, JP. Hopefully we'll see you next time. I want to take a look at this. Vesuvian Doppel. Oh, wow, it's actually that one. I didn't think that would grab the literal poster child. As it comes into play, you may choose a creature in play. If you do, it comes into play as a copy of that creature except for the color, and gains at the beginning of your upkeep. You can have this creature become a copy of target creature except for its color. Okay, I wonder if that's common for all of these. Let's see, that was the Vesuvian one. Just the shapeshifter from Antiquities. As it enters the field, pick a number between 0 and 7. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may choose a number between 0 and 7. Its power and toughness is equal to the last chosen number. Its toughness is equal to 7 minus that number. Ugh, that's complicated. Okay, so here's the weird deal. I can't give these guys a set bonus because it's gonna change all the time. So I'm not giving one. And that's really all I can do for this. I can't do it. So it's going to be up there with like the Lamia because it's literally just a walking pile of contradictions. Skeleton is done for us. Oh god. Oh no, I'm not ready for this one. I'm not ready for this. No! Alright. It's sliver time. Son of a bitch. I hate slivers. Alright. Slivers are creatures that share a hive mind, which allows them to share abilities with other nearby slivers. Cards with the creature type sliver have an ability or characteristic that they share with all other slivers. Early slivers share with all slivers in play, while later slivers affect only a player's side of the board. Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, I never even considered the idea of a sliver deck versus a sliver deck. Oh no. Oh no. I never even thought about that. Sliver versus sliver. I don't even want to think about it. Look, I'm not saying that slivers are bad from a player's perspective, because sliver decks absolutely work. They are... As an example, I play Guild Wars, okay? I played the first Guild Wars and I play Guild Wars 2. And one of the things that... Oh, well, okay, let's be honest. A lot of things changed in between Guild Wars 1 and 2. However, certain archetypes did remain. In Guild Wars 1, you had Minion Masters. They're exactly what they sound like. You, as a necromancer, would specialize in death magic. You would go out, kill things, raise their corpses, and have an army of bone minions that you could run around with and kill things. The problem with that is that in Guild Wars 1, dead things wanted to stay dead. Every single bone minion that you raised was dying. They came with health degeneration, and so if you did nothing, they would just keel over again. And the longer they were kept alive, the more health degeneration they got, which made them really, really hard to keep alive. And so to be an effective minion master in Guild Wars, you were required to know what you were doing and to be very, very good at it, or to have help in the form of a monk. There is still a Minion Master build in Guild Wars 2. However, in Guild Wars 2, there is no mechanic through which you raise your minions. You're just allowed to summon them. And they have no health degeneration. They actually heal on their own when you're out of combat. And you can have up to about a half a dozen of them. And what I have learned in playing it is that it's a crutch build. You can play it and you can do almost all the content in the game as a Minion Master. But in doing so, you will never actually learn how to play the game, because you have an army with you at all times and you never have to rely on your own skills. And this is a trap that I fell into early on when I was trying it, and I realized that, years later, I still had no idea how to play Necro. I see slivers in the same way. I'm not going to say that sliver decks don't work. Sliver decks absolutely work. But I see them as a crutch build. Sliver decks are so incredibly easy to play because they require nothing. All you do is play a sliver, and then play another sliver, and then play another sliver, and then play another sliver. If one of your slivers dies, who cares? You've lost one of your effects for everything, but you play another sliver, and you get a whole bunch of new effects after all. There is no necessarily wrong order. There is no necessarily wrong sliver. There is very little ways that you can really lose playing a sliver deck, if you have any kind of skill whatsoever. And so, I see them as a crutch build. They're kind of on par with a burn deck when you think about it, because a burn deck also doesn't necessarily require a whole lot of thought, and I will say this, owning a burn deck that I'm very proud of. It's very fun to play. It is not a high-level deck. I don't like slivers. I think slivers are bad for the game in general. And when I come here and I look at them and I say, okay, I need to make it so that my slivers here are capable of being imported into the game, what am I supposed to do with this? I mean, every sliver that you play is going to boost your other slivers. They have a hive mind, it says, but that doesn't necessarily make them more intelligent. I mean, there are insects that arguably have hive minds, like ants and such. We would not exactly call an ant smart. They're definitely smarter than other bugs, but they're not smart. Are they more wise? Do they have better instincts? Not really. Are they more charismatic? No, they're not. People hate them. Are they more dexterous? Not necessarily. This is one of those cases where it's just like, there's nothing that they're necessarily good at. There's nothing that any one sliver is good at. Their strength comes in the fact that every time you add more slivers, they get stronger as a whole. So what I think we're going to do is that. Slivers are going to get no bonuses. They're going to get no bonuses because their thing, the thing that makes them unique, is just the fact that the more you have, the stronger they get. And so they're all going to have more or less identical stats, and it's just going to essentially be making copies of them. You play one sliver, and it says all slivers get +1/+1. Okay, great. It's a sliver, it gets a +1/+1. You play another one that says it has, or all slivers have flying. Oh, and Blizz Star's out of here too. That's sad, but thanks for coming by, Blizz. So you play another sliver that has flying, and now you don't suddenly have a sliver with +1/+1 and a sliver with flying. You have two slivers with +1/+1 and two slivers with flying. You are essentially just making mirror copies of all of them. And so it actually kind of fits that they're all going to have the same stats as well, just with differing strength and or constitution, because, again, it's assigned by the card. So I think we're keeping very much to the lore. I think we're keeping to the spirit. I think that's going to work out pretty well. Okay, after slivers then, we have specters. And a lot of these I think are going to be pretty easy, because, I mean, what is a specter? It's an undead creature whose touch numbs the minds of their victims, robbing them of memories represented in-game by discard effects. Well, the discard effect falls under abilities, and we actually haven't gotten to these yet. We haven't gotten to the whole draw, discard, things like that. So we can ignore that completely. Doesn't matter. So then what are they? Just an undead creature? Okay, well, we got undead creatures. We have zombies. We have shades. We have all these things. It has no soft scores to really speak of. I'll give it some dexterity because it's ghostly and ethereal and hard to hit. Sure, I guess. Next is going to be spirits. Again, I feel like it's not that different than the shade or the specter. It represents an entity composed of energy that's related to a deceased person or a worshipped object or concept. Again, what do you want me to give you here? Technically speaking, if it's the spirit of a creature, it should have all of the same intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores as the creature did when it was alive. Or I guess as an object did. Which would be none. But either way, regardless, the soft stats should not change. And then the only thing really left is dexterity. Knight says, my Ren Fair cast meeting starts in about 30 minutes, so I have to head there. Well, it was great to see you here. It was a pleasure having you here. I hope to see more of you in the future. So you take care. We'll see you around. Again, spirits, there's just not much I can do for this. It's just a ghost. I'll give it some dexterity because it's harder to hit. What else am I supposed to do with this? Alright, what about a thrall? Not a thrall, but a thrall. Slight difference there. Thralls are creatures animated from dead flesh, usually with black mana, though some have been mono-white and in a black-white faction. The process of creating thralls is much different from assembling animating the undead, as thralls are actually living creatures. Thralls are often used for ritual sacrifice as their sacrifice releases mana stored in them. Now that's a really interesting point to bring up. We've already established that according to the lore, you have energy that comes from the source. And it basically flows out like magnetic field lines, okay? The energy comes out in all of these different colors of mana, and it flows through each plane. And as it flows through each plane, it energizes that plane. It gives it life. White gives it order and structure. Red gives it energy and motion. You know, things like that. It's worth pointing out that, like, all of this mana is also flowing through literally everything else there too. Not just the land itself, but in every being, in every object. So being able to sacrifice creatures for mana is absolutely on point. It has been noted that the process for creating Thralls is very similar to the process by which Phyrexian newts are created. The creature-type Thrall was first printed in Fallen Empires. So here's the thing. There's a whole 25 cards with these things on them. Let's think about them. Are they smart? I'm going to go ahead and assume that they're probably not. As a matter of fact, if I come over here and type in Thrall, that doesn't look right. There we go, that's better. Okay, we've got an Absolver Thrall. It is a... Ooh, that hurts. That proves me wrong. The Absolver Thrall is a Thrall Cleric. Well, if you're gonna be a cleric, you have to at least be kinda wise, right? There's an Armor Thrall. Sacrifice it, put a 1/2 counter on target creature. A basic Thrall, sacrifice and add mana. A Doorkeeper Thrall. Artifacts and creatures entering don't cause abilities to trigger. That's interesting. The Dutiful Thrall, which can be regenerated. The Exhumer Thrall, which has Haunt. The Grasping Thrall. Okay, I have no actual reason to believe that these things are dumb either. That complicates things. Okay, so they're not dumb. They're probably not wise, but that again doesn't mean they're dumb. Again, we have a cleric right here, so there's that. Charismatic, also probably not, given that these things are literally just like living flesh assembled and animated. Dexterous, I mean, they could be. I feel like this is going to be another one of those where they're just too varied for me to give them anything. You can have quadrupedal thralls, you can have bipedal thralls, you can have dumb ones, smart ones, you can have warriors, you can have literal mana rocks that are just there to be sacrificed. There's too much variation in them. There's just too much. And since I cannot do this on every individual level or individual case, I'm just going to say no bonuses. So, that's going to bring us to vampires. I hate vampires. However, vampires are going to prove to be a lot easier. Because let's think about it. Vampires, are they dexterous? Absolutely they are dexterous. They can fly, they can fight, they can move, they can dodge. Vampires are renowned for being able to just not be harmed. To the point where they literally exhibit superhuman reflexes and speed. You shoot an arrow at a vampire, the vampire can generally catch the arrow. Are they smart? Yes, vampires are incredibly smart. They're incredibly smart. A vampire's intelligence comes from, number one, the fact that if you're dumb, you don't survive very long. And number two, they tend to live for a very, very long time. So, I mean, there you go. Eventually, you're going to pick up a few things. Are they wise? Again, yes, for the same aforementioned reasons. A stupid vampire doesn't live very long, and if you do live a long time, you're going to become very, very wise. Are they charismatic? Yes, yes, they are. In fact, they are legendary for their charisma, their ability to attract people, either because they need thralls or because they need food. Vampires can always draw people in. So I think that what we're going to do is we're going to grab the same thing as we did up here with the angels and all these others. It is going to be a +2 to everything, with the exception of their strength and constitution. They're not bad at anything. They're just not. And PC, of course, says there are vampire clerics. I mean, seems a bit like an oxymoron, but sure. Okay, and so that's going to take us to wraiths. And again, I mentioned wraiths earlier. So a wraith is a black creature type used for cards that depict spirit-like apparitions that are supposed to portend the death of their beholder. These spectral undead are often shown wearing a hooded cloak that partially obscures their face or the lack thereof. Again, they're just spirits. Or it says they're spirit-like apparitions, but either way, they're like ghosts, specters, shades, they're like everything else. What am I supposed to do with this? There's a whole 12 of them too, which is weird. Yeah, there's nothing I can do with this. They don't even strike me as particularly dexterous, but I don't know what else to give them. They're just going to get a dexterity bonus that'll keep them alive for a little bit longer. I mean, it's only one extra armor class point. It might save them. Probably not, but it might. And so there we go. The Lamia, I'll go ahead and fill this in. No bonuses. The Shapeshifter, no bonuses. Again, we're not playing by the rules here, so if you're picking one of these, I don't need to give them a +2. We're literally in the part where we're breaking the rules. But there we go. Humanoid races in appearances only. We got it. Okay, and that is going to bring us down to here. Sapient non-humanoid races. Now, we started this one already a little bit. We got the Beeble, we got the Carrier. The Carriers are things that like spread disease and stuff, so we're not worried about those. However, Demons and Devils. Again, we no longer have to abide by the rules. I think that I'm going to grab the same thing that we gave to the Angels. The Angels and the Archons. We're going to give it to the Demons and the Devils. Why? Because they're literally the other side of that coin. So it should be fine. Next, Dragons. Okay. This is a little bit harder, but at the same time, it's going to be really easy because all we have to do is just break this down. Dragons are diverse, but there are certain commonalities that all dragons are going to have, especially when we're talking about like Dungeons and Dragons versions of the dragons. They all have wings. They all fly. I realize that not every dragon in the card game will have flying, but they all have wings. They all fly. That's a dexterity bonus at a minimum. Are dragons intelligent? By and large, yes. There are some dragons that are more bestial than others. However, even if I were to take dragons that absolutely do not want to have anything to do with anyone, I need to get back to the bestiary by type. Here we go, dragons. I'm going to pick a chromatic. Oh, brown, gray, orange, pink, purple, yellow. Yes, not what I wanted. Do I want true dragons? Is it not in here? Oh, come on, where is it? Black mass, half dragon, black shock, undead. Where the hell are all the dragons? I'm missing like most of the dragons here. Okay, fine, we'll do it this way. Dragons. They'll be under D. Or at least they damn well better. Dinosaurs, dragons, true dragons. Here we go. Chromatics, black. Here's the thing about black dragons. Black dragons don't like you. Okay? Just going to throw that one out there. Black dragons, they don't like you. And we look at these, lording over the darkest swamps and marshes. They are the undisputed masters of their domain, ruling through cruelty and intimidation. Those who dwell within a black dragon's reach live in fear. They tend to make their lairs in remote parts of the swamp, preferably in caves at the bottom of dark, fetid pools. Inside, they pile up their filthy treasures, sleep amid the roots and muck. Black dragons prefer their food a bit rotten and will often allow meat to sit in a pool for days before consuming it. They prefer treasures that do not rot or decay, making their hoard full of coins, gemstones, jewelry, and other objects made of stone and metal. Yeah, black dragons, they don't like you. However, when we look at the stats here, strength is high, constitution is high, intelligence is 14, wisdom is 17, charisma is still 14. And like I said, this is the one that doesn't like you. If I was to pick one of the metallic dragons that does like you, like say a copper dragon, those numbers are going up. So, weird as it is, I think I'm going to give them the same bonus. Just a bonus to everything. And also, I can't help but notice, I've been spelling this wrong the whole time. There we go. Fixed. Okay. So that'll take care of dragons. What is next? So, devils, dragons, drone. That's what we got to get to next, is drones. Okay. A drone is a creature type that refers to a simple, immature, or artificial life form that performs tedious and menial work. On Mirrodin, they are living yet artificial beings created by the Vedalkin of Mirrodin as guards, sentries, and shock troops. Though most likely self-aware, they lacked free will and were the mute, unquestioning slaves of the Vedalkin. Okay, right there is information that we can use. Most likely they were self-aware. In other words, they passed the mirror test. If you're unfamiliar with the mirror test, that's when you put an animal in front of a mirror, usually with something like a dot on their head or something that they couldn't normally see. If they see the image and inspect their own head, it shows that they are capable of comprehending themselves and identifying themselves in a reflection. It seems like these things would pass that, which means that they are going to have a higher intelligence than that of just your everyday animal. That does not mean that we have to give them a bonus, but it does mean that we're not going to penalize them for it either. Since a lot of them are supposed to be guards, sentries, or shock troops, it does make me think that maybe they would get a dexterity bonus. Then again, they're also laborers, which means that they wouldn't necessarily get that. I'm not sure. So they're not getting an intelligence bonus. I don't see them getting a wisdom bonus or a charisma bonus. Maybe we could give them dexterity just because? Especially since it says right here, there's two types of drones. There's the land-bound wander guards. There's also the more common hover guards. Well, if they're hover guards and they fly, that's going to require a dexterity bonus. And so I think that's what we're going to do. So it's going to be a +2 dexterity. Okay then. That takes care of those. Next. Oh hell. It's the Eldrazi. Okay. This is one that I don't really need to worry about, honestly, because you're not going to be able to summon one of these anyway. You just can't do it. I mean, every single one of these is like mythic rare, and they are essentially their own individual beings. You're not summoning one. Creature type describing an ancient race native to the blind eternities that have neither physical form nor color alignment. Their nature is ceaseless hunger, and so they travel between the planes, devouring the mana and life energy until the plane's destruction. 3 Eldrazi Titans were previously bound in Zendikar: Emrakul, Ulamog, and Kozilek. Emrakul warps biology, Ulamog warps physical properties, and Kozilek warps reality. Here's the deal with them. Even if we could summon one of them, they're gods. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to copy exactly what we wrote for the gods and paste it down here for the Eldrazi. So with the Eldrazi, X is going to equal their strength and constitution, whichever one is higher. So if the Eldrazi coming out is going to be a like 15-15, then we're going to give 15-15 to everything, which will give it 25-25 across the board. And if that's not worthy of being godlike, I don't know what is. I can't help there. And I'm pretty sure there is a 15-15 Eldrazi. Okay then. That was actually shorter than I thought it would be. Next up is an Elemental. Okay, so Elementals is pretty simple. It is literally just the animated version of any particular element. Earth, wind, or fire. There was a water, but I mean, they didn't make the band. As such, giving them bonuses is kind of hard. And I don't think I'm going to give them any. The reason being is that, sure, we can have air elementals, and they should get a bonus to dexterity. Earth, however, would not. None of them should get a bonus to their intelligence, or their wisdom necessarily, or their charisma for that matter. And so the best way to make it balanced is to just not do it. Okay, next is an eye. You know what? I'm not sure what I was expecting when I clicked on that, but I will say that that is not what I was expecting. That's somehow worse. So, Eye is a seldom used black creature type used for cards that depict magical sentient beings that appear as large, floating, single eyes. That's how you know they're different from angels, because it's just one eye. If it was many eyes, it would be saying, be not afraid. Okay. So, the evil eye of Orms by Gore from Legends. The evil eye of Urborg and Time Spiral. There's lots of these things. Here's the thing about this. Are they dexterous? Not really. It's an eyeball. Is it smart? Probably not. It's an eyeball. Is it charismatic? Do you want to hang around with it? Probably not. However, is it wise? Kinda. Kinda. And I'll tell you why. I don't need 2 pages here on the bestiary, so we'll just get rid of that. I'm going to come over here to skills. Is it wise? We're going to come down here to perception. Perception, the skill. Your senses allow you to notice the fine details and alert you to danger. Perception covers all 5 senses, including sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Does it have a nose? No. Does it have a mouth? No. Does it touch things? I hope not. Does it hear anything? I'm going to gather probably not, but it does have sight. It's got lots of really good sight. It has the best sight. People often agree with that. And so, because of that, I'm going to give it a bonus to its wisdom. Just so it can get a bonus on perception. Because, I mean, it deserves it. This thing has literally nothing else going for it except for this. I'm going to give it a +4 to its wisdom. I mean, it only does one thing, but it does it really, really well. Okay, next. After the eye is a glimmer. I would put the glimmer in the eye. Now that would be something. Okay, Glimmer is a creature type introduced in Duskmourn, House of Horror. There are always enchanted creatures, although present in all colors, they're dominant in white. Let's see, they're creatures that still have a presence after they die. It's a ghost. They're light manifestations of the hopes and persistence of Duskmourn survivors, depicted as golden colors that produce a sparkling effect. As the physical manifestation of psychic phenomena, they take the form of treasured childhood objects, fondly remembered pets, friends, or other comforts that a survivor holds to prevent giving up. It's just a ghost. We're going to treat it like every single other ghost we've had in here. We'll give it a dexterity bonus out of pity. Next up is a gremlin. Okay, I saw the movie Gremlins. That is not what they look like. A gremlin is a primarily red creature type, has an inclination to damage or dismantle machinery. The first gremlin, the Phyrexian gremlins, was the only representative for their race for 18 years, followed by the similarly Phyrexian Fiencermite, both in black. The type was ported over to red with the Kaladesh block as a less sapient goblin substitute. Okay, well that's fine then, because we've got goblins. Oh, stop beeping at me. We've already got goblins up here. They get a +4 dexterity and a -2 to charisma. Nothing about intelligence, so if these things are going to be less sapient, I mean, that works. Right? So, I mean, here we go. That works out pretty well for us. Alright, quick and easy. I love it. Harpies are next. Harpies are seldom used black and blue creature type, used for cards that depict ravenous, filthy monsters that have a woman's head and a bird's body. The first card named Harpy was the Screeching Harpy in Tempest, but it had the subtype of Beast. Two other cards followed, the Molting Harpy in Mercadian Masks, and the multicolored Cavern Harpy in Planeshift, which was also a beast. It's only on 11 cards that have it. So, it doesn't really say that much about them. It says here they behave like vultures or corvids, attacking the weak and stealing objects. In Ixalan, they resemble owls rather than vultures. They are the servants of Ixalan's demons and usually live in rocky cliffs near the seas. Though thought to have once been sirens due to their close resemblance, their bite carries a dangerous disease. Okay, well, because they are flying... because they are flying, we can give them a bonus to their dexterity. Let's see. Oh, PC Unicorn also said something special, weakness to water elementals. I think that was in reference to the gremlins. And even then, that only applies after midnight. I think. Or so they just don't get fed after midnight. Now I don't remember. Obviously, I would not do well keeping a gremlin for a pet, so just don't keep gremlins for pets. Okay, that's the moral of the story here. Okay, anyway. Right, Harpy. Dexterity bonus. Intelligence bonus, though? Probably not. Same thing with wisdom? Maybe? But there's a contradiction there. It does say that they have the subtype of beast. If a beast is an animal, and all of our animals got a bonus to their dexterity and wisdom, I think the harpy should too. I think that's what we're going to do. +2 dexterity, and a +2 wisdom for good instincts. However, it's not getting the intelligence set to 2. It's still got a 10 intelligence. So that should be fine. Okay, next up is the Homerid. Homerids are part lobster or crab. Ugh, that's ugly. Wow, there's a lot of things that I would like to do with this, but I'm not going to do it. Like, for starters, I would kind of like to go ahead and give it an extra armor class, natural armor, for being a crab. But again, it's not an actual crab. Okay? It's just not. It's an echo of a crab. Technically speaking, and this might be a note that we want to make for later. Technically speaking, an echo should be able to adopt any properties that a planeswalker that summons it wants to give them. This could come in several different forms. And I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing here. I'm rolling it around in my head right now. But if you had a whole bunch of creatures on the field, and then you had something like this big crab creature here, if you were to focus on that creature and then treat it more like the actual creature that it was, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't be able to give it some kind of natural armor. And maybe that's something we have to look at when we go back to what the Planeswalker is allowed to do as it levels up. We still need to add in planar travel. However, we should find ways for them to just say, upgrade a creature. As a matter of fact, we may be able to even do it in the same way that we do Eidolons. I'll make a note of that, and we can revisit that later on. For now, though, it is a creature type that depicts sentient lobster-like creatures that thrive in cold water. There's only 7 of these cards, but it says they resemble large, 8-legged bipedal lobsters between 5 and 7 feet tall in height, though some of them are crab or crayfish-like in appearance, possibly representing different subraces. Is there anything that we can give these guys? Do they look like they're apparently very smart? Probably not. Sapient does not mean smart, so probably no bonus there. Wise? I don't see that they're necessarily any more wise either. And charismatic? Yeah, that's the face that you want waking up to you in the morning. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so it's not going to be really any of those 3. How about dexterity? Well, actually kind of yes. Anybody who's ever tried to catch things like crayfish know that they are quick. They're pretty quick going forward, sideways. They're really quick going backwards. And so I'm inclined to go ahead and give them a bonus to their dexterity. In addition, they have those great big pincers, and that means that they're capable of at least defending themselves. They can fend off weapons or other incoming blows. They're harder to hit. So I think that works. Okay then. After that is Homunculus. Now Homunculus is a fake person. Or in this case, little person. It is a blue creature type used for cards that depict artificially made, but sentient and living, miniature humans. The creatures are used for menial or dangerous tasks. Many homunculi have just a single cycloptic eye. Which, I mean, that's pretty much what we're looking at right here. The first one to bear the type was the Bonded Fetch in Future Sight, though the Sneaky Homunculus in Nemesis and the Hazy Homunculus in Prophecy were later issued errata to become homunculi in addition to their illusion type. Okay. So what are we going to give them? Are they dexterous? No, but they are small, and so that does make them a little bit harder to hit. Hard to say. I think we'll just kind of... I don't know if I'm going to give them that. Are they smart? They do seem to be. Especially since we have one here that's literally reading a book. So, maybe. But is that true for all of them? There's 26 of these cards that are homunculus. Can we guarantee that to all of them? Let's see. In Alara... they're magically constructed. They are sentient and self-willed, but incapable of defying the demands of their creators. They're used for a myriad of purposes, but most often function as clerks, scribes, couriers, and decorative additions to a mage's retinue. In Fiora, it isn't known who creates them, but they're often found around Paliano, but it doesn't say anything about that. In Innistrad... they're the hunchbacked assistants to mad scientists or vampires in old horror movies. In Kilem, the sentient homunculi are the caretakers of Valor's Reach. Their most notable roles in field acting as penalty mages, No foul during play escapes on their watch. In Ravnica, they're less human, more imp-like. They can't speak, but they do communicate with sign language and written form. Okay, so it seems like they're generally smart. Because they are small, they're also rather dexterous. Are they very wise? I don't know. Are they charismatic? Probably not. But I do think that we can do this. I think we can give them a +2 to their dexterity and a +2 to their intelligence. And so that should be fine. After the homunculus, we have horror. Wow, that picture really lives up to the name. It is a catch-all creature type used for horrible black-aligned fiends and beings that defy normal descriptions. Horrors originate from different sources such as nightmares, scientific experiments, and hellish planes. The first creature to bear the type was the Cosmic Horror in Legends. Many cards received the Horror type retroactively in the Grand Creature type update. Notable creatures from earlier sets like the Abomination and Hell's Caretaker retroactively became Horrors. They don't have any prevalent abilities, but most of their abilities harm the controller of the Horror. Many of them also have some kind of evasion. As time has gone on and Horrors branched into blue as a secondary color, they became associated with milling and theft effects. Okay, because they are so varied, I don't know that I can give them a bonus. I just don't know. Because you could have a lot of horrors that may not be very dexterous. None of them strike me as being intelligent or wise. They're definitely not charismatic. So, no bonus. You're not a thing. You're like the manifestation of just all existential dread. Alright, so that'll take us to illusions, which is something that I like a lot more. However, I feel like this is also going to be very, very simple. It is a creature type used for cards that depict the incorporeal beings that are manifestations of pure thought and will, often aligned with blue mana. The existence of illusions is often based on the manipulation of mind magic. Their attributes are variable. As they are immaterial, some may be used to attack, through the enemy's defenses. However, many are at such odds with reality that direct contact with the material world breaks their spell and causes them to vanish or be destroyed. This is seen as their illusion ability, when whatever becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. More recent illusions are only vulnerable to spells, not abilities. The first creatures to bear this were the Illusionary Presence and Illusionary Forces in Ice Age. It's just an illusion. I don't see any bonuses that I can give it. Is it dexterous? Sure, maybe, but again, that's an illusion. Everything is an illusion. I'm not going to give him a bonus. Okay, imps. So, imps are mainly black creatures used for cards to depict small, pesky, bat-like lesser demons. The first creature was the Nettling Imp in Alpha. They're found in many different planes. There's 44 cards with them. There's notable imps, but here's the thing about imps. They're basically just goblins with wings. So, since we use the same thing for the same stats for the gremlin, we can use the same stats here for the imp. That makes that very easy. Afterwards, Incarnation. So what is this? An incarnation is a creature type that first appeared in Judgment personal incarnation from Alpha also gain the subtype retroactively. So an incarnation means embodiment in flesh or taking on flesh. It refers to the conception or birth of a sentient creature, which is the material manifestation of a force or concept whose original nature is immaterial. There are 20 cards with this on it. So each of these cards costs 3 plus N. It has a static ability that grants your creatures an in-color ability as long as it's in your graveyard. So there's Valor, Wonder, Filth, Anger, Brawn. In the Lorwyn Cycle, we got Purity, Guile, Dread, Hostility, and Vigor. And in the Modern Horizons, we got Solitude, Subtlety, Grief, Fury, and Endurance. And Universes Beyond, we're not dealing with. So, no big deal there. Again, this is one of those that is so varied, I can't give it any kind of special bonus. Yeah, you can summon more of them if you want, but they're not getting any bonus. Okay, so we're going to leave that one behind and move on to the Kieran. The Kieran. The creature type of the East Asian spirit of the same name. It is a chimeric creature with aspects of a horse, dragon, and deer or goat. They are always flying. Legends say that they walked upon clouds to avoid ever harming another being. They are omens of good fortune and long life. They are said to appear with the imminent arrival or passing of a wise sage or an illustrious ruler. With the exception of the Kamigawa cycle, all Kirans are aligned with white mana. Okay, so it's basically a really, really smart creature. Not to mention that people like to see them. I could give it a charisma bonus, but I don't think I'm going to because they do tend to avoid people. However, we can treat it just like the Harpy. Bonus to dexterity because it flies, bonus to wisdom because it's an animal, but no penalties to anything. I need a drink desperately. Okay, much better. Alright, Lama Su. Let's move on. I know the name, but I don't know what it is. The Lama Su is a bizarre creature type with the body of a bull, a bird's wings, and a human head with horns. It is based on the Mesopotamian creatures of the same name and appearance. So far, 3 Lamas have been printed, and all are associated with white mana. Okay, so this is essentially very, very similar to both the Harpy and the Kieran. I can just copy and paste. Done. Don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it. Okay, next, something that'll be less simple. Nephilim. Okay, there are only 5 of these things in existence. 5 rare creatures of the cycle have different appearances and are some spirit-like, others are beast-like. Each one costs 4 mana of separate colors, excluding the color of its enemy. So there's the Yortiller, the Glint Eye, the Dune Brood, the Ink Treader, and the Witch Maw. Okay, but it says right here that they have different appearances, all of them. Spirit-like, beast-like, or just plain others. I don't know what to do with this. It says that they are powerful monstrosities with limited intelligence that were venerated by the cult of Yor, who saw them as the old gods. As such, they were a symbol of old Ravnica before the time of the Guild Pact. Unlike the created lords of the Guild Pact, these entities did not make demands or accept sacrifices. They did not require or answer prayers. They were there only to humble, living, walking examples of the world's vastness, diversity, unpredictability, danger, wonder, horror, and complexity beyond comprehension. They were subdued thousands of years before the events of the Ravnica block and imprisoned deep below the plane's surface. Their precise origins are unknown. Once awakened by construction workers at the Utvara district, 5 of the creatures fed on a dragon corpse and grew in size and power, showing a shared ability to absorb power from other beings. Almost forgotten for 10,000 years, the return of the Nephilim was seen as a sign of change and indeed coincided with the fall of the Guild Pack at the Decamillennial. Though they defeated Niv Mizzet, he managed to destroy 2 of them. Go, Dragon Dude. The remaining 3 made it to the center of Ravnica City, where they were eventually subdued. Rakdos defeated 1 of them, and the last 2 were killed by mana explosions. Sounds fun. Let's see. 4-color design. I don't really care about that. Okay. So these things are essentially like gods. And I think we can use the same thing that we use for like the Eldrazi. These things are just enormous. Anything that's on that level deserves to have those stats. Okay, next up is Nightmare. Nightmare should be pretty easy. It's a creature type that is used to depict terrifying monsters, evil spirits created by the unconscious mind. They're primarily black, although they do appear in other colors. The first Nightmare card was just called Nightmare. It was a powerful black flying horse that draws its power from swamps. Fair enough. It says here, Ashiok is a planeswalker from an unknown plane who discovered not only a great skill at culling the nightmares from others, but also to make them manifest in reality. Ashiok enjoys watching those who see themselves as untouchable and superior reduced to screaming and blubbering because all sentient beings feel fear. Ashiok believes in its power as a great equalizer. He's known to have visited Theros, Ravnica, and Eldraine. Fair enough, but I don't really care about that, to be honest. We just need to determine what it is and what it gets. And it's just a nightmare. It is essentially an illusion. And so we'll treat it as such. We did illusions up here. They gained no bonuses. And so nightmares will similarly gain no bonuses. Alright, after that, let's see, Nightmare, Night Stalker. Night Stalker is a creature type, no kidding. Holy crap, look at that thing. That is awful. Let's see, Night Stalkers are malevolent black mana entities from Dominaria. They are roughly humanoid, but have elongated limbs, spiked hair, and very long, very sharp teeth. What are we gonna do with these guys? So, they're definitely not getting a charisma bonus, I know that for damn sure. It says they're most prolific at Dakmor, where they were magically created servants of the Swamp Queen, Tolhira? Not sure. They ride large mechanical beasts, which leads to attack the Oliborn. Weapons were given to them by Tolhira. They were also found on Urborg, although they were more spirit-like than the Night Stalkers of Kalaman. They're the minions of Kervek, serving as his assassins in his attempt to conquer Jamura. So there's a lot of variety to them. However, what can we give them? I do think they deserve a dexterity bonus because they look like it. I feel like they can jump, they can climb, they can run, they can do all the things. Are they smart? Well, yes and no. they're smart enough to serve as utilities, they're smart enough to serve as soldiers, even as assassins in one case. However, the assassins are kind of an outlier. I don't think they get a bonus to their intelligence. What about their wisdom? Do they appear entirely wise? Also, probably not. I mean, they were created to serve. That doesn't necessarily make them any wiser than anyone else. In fact, it's kind of an argument against them not being as wise. So, what about charisma? That's a joke. They don't get a charisma bonus. I mean, do you see that? Nobody wants to be friends with that. So, I mean, a +2 dexterity is about all I see. And I guess that's probably going to be just about it. Alright, there's a few more of these left. Let's see if we can get through them. Next is Phyrexian. I love Phyrexians. I mean, it helps that, number one, I love machines, and so there's that. It also helps that I really kind of got into Magic the Gathering around Mirrodin. And so that's when the whole Phyrexian thing was really just kicking off. So, Phyrexian is a creature type that was introduced in Kaldheim. It was retroactively added as far back as Antiquities. It also represents a faction, and as such, there are Planeswalkers who are Phyrexians, but do not have the Phyrexian creature type. Each Phyrexian Planeswalker uses the completed mechanic to represent this. Okay, there is a lot here because a huge, huge chunk of the lore takes place on Phyrexia. It says a Phyrexian is a completed creature from Phyrexia, New Phyrexia, or a similar infested plane. They consist of metal and organic matter and can appear in many forms. They're often recognized by features like drooping ichor, eyelessness, cysts, pustules, or the expulsion of noxious gases. They are Phyrexians in the machine orthodoxy of New Phyrexia often have their skin replaced with glossy porcelain-like armor. The complicating part of Phyrexians is that they are so very, very varied. Literally 471 cards. As such, I can't give them a bonus. I love these guys. I really do. But there are so many of them that there is not any one that is going to represent even the majority. And so, unfortunately, they get no bonuses. This is a case of not that they're a contradiction, it's just they're too complex to be defined. Actually, no, I take it back. There's a way around that. And the reason for that is this. That is literally humans. Humans get a +2 to anything. Because humans are varied. And so we can do the same thing down here. When you make your Phyrexian mini sheet, you can give it a +2 to anything you want. And that will give it some kind of bonus, and you can have it reflect whatever it is that you're making. Alright, so now that we got Phyrexian done, we move on to Spawn. No, not the comic book character. These are blue and colorless creature types used for cards and tokens that depict a creature that is regarded as the offspring of some concept, place, character, or creature. Okay, right. This is only on one card, really? The first card to bear the name was the Elder Spawn in Legends, but the subtype was then changed to Elemental. It was later reinvented as a creature class of Eldrazi tokens, created by several cards from the Rise of the Eldrazi. Each of the 3 Eldrazi Titans spawns its own brood lineage. The 3 brood lineages are composed of Eldrazi drones and subordinate spawns, each reflecting the image of its progenitor. No non-token spawn were printed, and they were all colorless 0/1 creatures that could be sacrificed to add mana. In the return block battle for Zendikar, the spawn were replaced with a more powerful Scion, which was about the same, but they were 1/1s. The revisit to Eldrazi in Modern Horizons 3 returned to using spawn. So just like make up your mind, okay? So it's supposed to just be any offspring of a creature, concept, place, character, whatever. And I mean, there are 38 cards that create them. There's also this Eldrazi spawn right here. Colorless. It's a 0/1. There's just this regular spawn here. I don't know how necessarily to do the spawns. They're supposed to be based on whatever creature created them. So here's what I think I'll do. For spawn. I'm going to go ahead and say that the spawn comes in with the same abilities, but divided by 2. And that should make it so that you can have spawn in there. However, they're going to be much weaker than the other ones would be normally. And that should be good. Next, Sphinx. Now, is this going to be like the riddling Sphinx? Yes, it is. So, it is a creature type used on magic cards to pick large and powerful creatures with lion-like bodies, human faces, and feathered wings. Some rival dragons in size and strength. Notably, Sphinxes are the iconic creature type for the color blue, and they can be found in many planes. Now, right there, I think, is everything we need to know. Some rival dragons. Okay? Why? Well, let's think about what is a Sphinx. Sphinxes have been regarded as being intelligent. They are the ones who tell riddles. Riddles also come with an aspect of wisdom, because you have to not only know things, but you have to be able to interpret them in creative ways. They are charismatic. People literally seek them out. I'm not saying that they seek them out for like beauty or anything, but they do literally seek them out. That is charisma. As far as dexterity goes, they have wings. They can fly. Which means, very, very similar to dragons, they are going to get bonuses to just everything. Literally going to copy what we did for the dragons. Alright. Now, Spirit. Didn't we do Spirit already? Yeah, we did Spirit up here. Okay, well, it's a duplicate then. We'll paste that in there, and now we got that done. Thallid. Did we do Thallid already, too? We did Thrall. Up here, there's Thalikos. No, we didn't do Thallid yet. Okay, Thallid. They are mushroom creatures, created with an infusion of green mana. They're specific to the multiverse. All Thallids have the fungus subtype. Let's see. As cattle, Thallids produce saprolings, which are used as a food source and contain high amounts of green mana. Thallids were featured specifically in the Fallen Empires expansion, later in the Time Spiral block. Future sites seem to indicate that the Thallid variant called Sporeloss would appear in the future somewhere. Okay, so they're literally used as a food source. It's not expressly an animal, but it's treated like an animal in the same way. So I'm going to treat it that way too. I'll give it a bonus to dexterity and wisdom, but that's it. Just for the whole survival of the fittest and instinct thing. Next is going to be tree folk. I think we can finish this up. At least this block. So tree folk are exactly what you think they are. They are sentient trees and guardians of the forest they inhabit. There's many varieties of tree folk, including or inhabiting a variety of forests. The first creature to bear this type, of course, was the iron root tree folk in Alpha. This is actually going to be kind of interesting because regardless of what kind of tree folk it is, I think they're all going to be kind of the same. There are 110 of them, though. It's like, are they particularly dexterous? No, not really. Are they particularly intelligent? Also, no. Are they charismatic? Probably not, because they tend to bash everything. However, are they wise? They have the wisdom of the forest. Literally. So, here's what I think we're going to do. We'll give them a +2 to wisdom. It's not much, but it does put them a cut above the rest of the ferns. And the last one here is the Zubura. The Zubura is a creature type unique to the Kamigawa block. It is a faceless kami of a human who has been pulled into the spirit world. The Zubura are said to attack solitary travelers in order to steal their faces. In fact, Zubura is essentially a species of spirit. No Zubura is printed without the spirit type. Well, then there we go. It's just a spirit. Which means that we can copy what we did with the spirit. That makes it super quick and simple, and I like that. Okay, there we go. So with the Zubura done, again, super simple, that takes care of all of the sapient non-humanoids. Everything from the Beebles, demons, dragons, Eldrazi, all the way through imps, Kirins, nightmares, spawns, my Phyrexians, and even tree folk. It's looking good. We still have a fair number of them to go. The number of non-humanoids without their own subtype, these are hard to say. These are kind of going to be like animals, I think, because it doesn't say they're sapient. But cephalids, those are going to be squids. Their intelligence is actually pretty high, to be honest. Thalids, we just did. So we can put that down there. The Sporoloth, crossbreeds, mutants, orgs, weirds, we'll get to those. After that, we come back here to animals, which are done. But then we get into mystical animals. Fantastic animals. And the fantastic animals don't necessarily need to play by the rules. I mean, for example, we have dragons here. And we have dragons over here. It just kind of fills itself in. There we go. But we'll get to these next time. It's not exactly a long list, but we should be able to make some decent progress through it. We take care of those. We take care of the rest of the plants and stuff down here. Artifact creatures is going to be interesting. And there's a lot of them. There's an awful lot of them. A lot of these are also going to be Phyrexians. So having Phyrexians be flexible like that is going to kind of pay off here. So yeah, we'll get to that next time. But for now, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a break. So we made good progress. I feel good about it. I'm excited. We're getting closer to being done with these. There's still a lot of classes to get through too, but once it's done, we'll be able to sit down and just make pretty much any card that we want, any creature card, into a full stat block. And we'll definitely run a few of those. We'll like go back and remake the 3 that I did before, the Aven, the Eldrazi, and the Spider. We'll remake those according to the new rules, just to check how well it works out. And then we'll move on to something else. I'm not sure what we'll be doing next. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But, again, that's for next time. So if you want to see that, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon. That way you get notified every time these videos come out. If you know somebody else who is also into either Pathfinder or Magic the Gathering, share this video with them. But if you just like me, you like what I'm doing, leave a like in the video. You can leave comments down below. That's what the comment section's for. I do answer them. It sometimes takes me some time, but I do answer them. However, if you'd like a more immediate response, I would suggest joining the Discord. Join the Discord. And then, if you want to play with us, because like these modules are meant to be played. If you want to play with us, join the Discord, go to the Behind the Screen channel, let me know what you want to play and what your availability is like, and as soon as I can get enough people together, we can put the game together. So if you want to play, you got to do that. Hopefully, I'll see you over there. And until then, take care.